Good morning. Good morning. Good Friday morning. Another week. Woo! That's always good, right? Another week down. Wrapping up this morning with some news articles, that kind of stuff, and talking about this week and what we had going on. Hope everybody has had a good week. Kevin, good to see you, my friend. Thanks for tuning in, my friend. Good to see you. Guys. So it's been a crazy week. I know most everybody's probably getting ready for the Christmas holidays. Maybe you've already started your Christmas, parties and stuff. I've got a few I've got to go to. It's always fun to connect with people, kind of get in front of people more, see people, personal, build relationships, those type of things. It's always good. Family, friends, all kinds of shopping going on. All kinds of shopping. Everybody likes to spend money this time of year. And I will say it does in the real estate industry. It always has surprised me about this. December comes and we get busy. It's almost like December has this big increase in sales and activity. And I think most people are just trying to wrap it up before the end of the year. And matter of fact, when I was actively listing and selling properties, December tended to be like my busiest time of the year. A lot of 1031 tax exchange people need to wrap some deals up, get things closed. So hopefully you're having kind of a good December. I know if you're not, it can cause a lot of stress on the finances because it seems like everything is like due at the same time. You probably have association dues, you have taxes, all those type of things. So hopefully you've had a really, really good week. I've been constantly tweaking the audio on this. I had somebody actually reach out and help me with that. So I'm kind of interested to see how that is actually coming through. So we'll see. Let me know if it's peaking or not. Music, the sound bed is good. I'm trying to kind of adjust all this. Like I said, I'm using a new software for streaming that I've not used before. I previously was using StreamYard. Of course, that comes with like a yearly, a monthly fee, yearly fee, that kind of stuff. And I just don't do this enough to warrant spending that kind of money on a streaming software when there's other ones out there that are free, like one being OBS. That's the most common one people use. Then I stumbled upon this one here, which is Meld Studio. Meld Studio just seems to be easier. OBS has a lot of confusing things to set up in the settings. But at the same time, it's hard to kind of hone in that audio. So I'm still working on that. I don't know if it's coming in too loud or not. I always go back and listen and keep kind of tweaking this. So, but with all that being said, thanks for tuning in. The whole point here is, and I've said it all week, is just to kind of come in, invite you into my office here in the morning, shooting for like between 8 and 8:30 in the mornings when I can. I'll probably develop a better schedule as this goes and begin to kind of hone in a little bit on what this looks like going forward. But the point here is to kind of invite you into my startup routine, kind of how I get started with the day, keeping current on real estate and what is going on in my industry, so I can help better equip agents that are out there. So this is kind of my intentional time just to drink some coffee, go over some news articles and talk about those, and maybe give some insight, my own opinions, obviously, my own assessments of what is being said in the media. We all know the media is constantly putting out a lot of articles. They got to push them out there to make a lot of money off of them. That's how it works. So a lot of times there's a lot of hype in that. So today is literally no different than that, because what actually has happened, I've had a lot of conversations with my own agents, a lot of conversations on different platforms, and even through some of these viewers here. So thank you guys for sending those in. What it is I guess some people have been watching and they're seeing how I'm kind of dissecting some of these news articles. So they're sending me some information, and what they're sending me is kind of contrasting opinions. Like one article will say, it's a crash that's coming in the real estate market. The other one says it's like a reset. And so there's these contrasting views and contrasting opinions about what it is, what is going to happen over the next few years. And before I kind of get into these articles, and what I want to kind of set the stage for a little bit here is, and I said it this week as well, you got to understand that news outlets are in the business to sell ad revenue, get traction on their articles. And most of you guys know this, but the catchy headlines, the clickbait type comments that just drive people to click and engage with those articles, share those articles, they have to be exciting. They have to have something in them that draws people in to click and then read. So sometimes the headlines, it doesn't even match up with what the content of the article says. It's just enough to grab you. And you'll see that a lot. But then sometimes even the headline and the article has a bias in it. And what I always encourage people to do is find the truth in the data, especially when it comes to like real estate type information. Like, there's data for all these things, and there's also historical data that most economists in our industry rely upon to come to their conclusions and any kind of predictions that they make in regards to where we might be heading in the real estate industry. So with all that in mind, I'm actually going to begin with an article to me that did exactly this. They had a little bit of this catch, like, here, read this. And this was sent in to me. So I'm going to break it down just a little bit and kind of talk through this because it does show you kind of how there is polarizations in news articles. And ultimately, there's maybe agenda behind that. And I don't like to get caught up in agenda. And I'm not talking politics at all. I'm just talking for truth. I don't care about what side of the aisle anyone's on. If something's true, it's true. It can't be contradictory. So I always look for that true line, that where is the truth at inside of these articles, and how can I then use what I'm reading to better educate myself and those around me, be my agents or the consumer that I'm representing, right? So that's the whole point of these articles. So without laboring on that anymore, let's jump into the first article here and discuss this one, because this is the one that kind of is that catch thing, right? And so I would encourage you to go back and watch some other live streams, because you'll notice that I talked about what the market is doing based on some of the data that was found in these other articles that I had in the previous live streams. And they don't necessarily match up with this headline and even kind of what this article kind of is saying. So let's kind of go through that. So right at the gate here, you'll see the headline: U.S. housing market poised to crash, worse than 2008, expert warns. And 50% plunge could start in 2026. Protect yourself. There's a lot just in that headline, a lot of buzz in that headline. And I encourage you to resist the urge to take this and make this a talking script. Because again, we got to go to the data, right? So first of all, the very first sentence: U.S. housing market poised to crash, worse than 2008. Look, I got licensed at the beginning of 2006. Market was great, but it was so good, and there was so much predatory lending going on, where someone could have almost a non-existent credit score and not even verified income and submit that to a lender, and that lender would approve them for a loan, and then they would buy a house. And when they were doing that, they were giving them ARM loans that would amortize the interest rate based on what the current rate was. So as that rate went up, it would recalculate the loan with that new high interest rate. So, and that was a majority of the homes from like roughly around 2005 to 2008. That's the type of loans that were being made. So what ended up happening in 2008, the market shifted because the inflation of the home got more and more expensive. Everybody was buying homes. They couldn't afford homes. Then the moment those interest rates began to inch up, the affordability of those homes became impossible for those that were living in them. And that inevitably led to an absolute crash. You had a majority of people that were underwater in their own homes, and they didn't have the income to actually pay for that higher interest rate and the higher payment. So it led to a lot of forbearance payments, which means they negotiated a deal with their banks to try to stay in their homes, or worse, a bunch of foreclosures. So leading into 2008, we had a flood of foreclosures going onto the market. So that led to a crash. So here's the contrasting. Are we seeing that same thing right now to make a statement that it's worse than 2008? High increases of foreclosures on the market and predatory lending going on to lead into that moment? It's not in the data. It's not in my experience, right? So the headline is very interesting. And then it says, and 50% plunge could start in 2026. Protect yourself. There's even a statement of fear there. Protect yourself, right? You need to protect yourself. This is written by Jing Pan. Here's the thing. I would encourage you, and I'm not going to do this right now, but I would encourage you, when you read an article, when you read some news source, you look at the person's name, you go back, you Google them, you research them, and find out what other articles they have written. See if you can figure out what this person is trying to do. What is their angle on this? What is their purpose of writing this article? What are they trying to gain from this article? Is this article true or is it not? That's what we need to figure out here. Here's the article. The 2008 housing meltdown was brutal. Home values collapsed. Millions of Americans were pushed into foreclosure and trillions in household wealth evaporated. Now, housing analyst Melody Wright is warning that the next downturn could be even worse. All right, so here's the thing. Crazy headline, but is it what this article is going to be saying? Or did they just get you to click on it so you can get into the meat, get into the data? So is Jing Pan telling us the truth, or is she not? As we read, we'll find out. What does she do? She references a person, Melody Wright. So who is making this statement? Not the writer. Melody Wright is, right? Housing analyst Melody Wright is warning that the next downturn could be even worse. In a recent interview with Adam Taggart on Thoughtful Money, Wright said the U.S. housing market is heading for a significant correction. Must read. No, skip those. Those are more articles. I think, Adam, we're going to correct all the way to a point where household median income matches the median home price. And so that is going to be worse than 2008, she said. Now, I wouldn't disagree with her first statement. I wouldn't disagree with that. We're going to correct all the way to a point where household median income matches the median home price. I would agree. That's what happens. This is like normal economics, right? Supply and demand, income, you have this massive inflation, slowdown in the market, income gradually inches up to adjust to what the market is, goods rise, profits rise, dollar increases, those type of thing, or dollar decreases, and then the value of the dollar diminishes, and then everything else has to be more, right? That's just supply and demand. That's economics 101. So that first part, agree, right? But then comparing it to worse than 2008, that's pretty large leap. Wright noted that during the last crash, prices were on their way toward that equilibrium, where median incomes and median home values aligned, but Wall Street came in to buy those, effectively stopping the decline. This time, she argues, large investors may not step in. They bought, if you go back to 2008, they were doing all these crazy loans. And the Dodd-Frank law was not in place that allowed some of these predator lenders to go in there and sell loans off and buy them up by investors. And then more and more money was pouring into this because they thought that they would have to gain there over time. They didn't anticipate that. That's not what we're seeing, though, today. That's not what's happening here. Let's see. The disconnect between home prices and household income is striking. According to Federal Reserve data, the median sales price of a U.S. home reached $410,000 in the second quarter of 2025, a 42% jump over the past decade. All right, not past year, not past couple years, not even 5 years. We're talking 10 years, a 42% jump. Okay, that's not actually as significant as she's making it out to be. Realtor.com estimates a typical household now needs to earn roughly $118,530 a year to afford a median price home. The actual median household income as of 2024, when the latest data was available, just $83,000. Okay, again, adjustment, a reset, yes. A crash, an ultimate crash, no. That's not what we're going to see here. I don't think so, especially not in 2026. Now, unless something drastic happens, unless something crazy takes place, that could be a possibility. But in what we know right now, based on the data that we can see, that's not what most economists, and definitely somebody that has an opinion, this is an opinion piece, really. When asked how far prices would need to fall to restore balance, Wright didn't mince words. It's going to be near 50%. And much greater in certain areas. It's a chilling prospect given how much U.S. household wealth sits in home equity and how much leverage many recent buyers are carrying. A 50% decline would be devastating. 50%. There are already hints of a shift. Zillow recently reported that 53% of U.S. homes lost value over the past year. Didn't note the amount of value, right? They just lost value. The highest share since 2012, with an average drawdown of 9.7%. Okay, drastic numbers, inflation going on here, right? So is there going to be a decrease in prices? Yeah, we've already seen that, right? You have a home on the market and it doesn't sell. So what does the seller do? They begin to inch that price down, gets it closer to the affordability mark. And then once it becomes affordable, they can then sell the house by a buyer. This is normal supply and demand. We do not see predatory lending of 2008. We do not see checks and balances being ignored, that credit score is irrelevant really, and people can lie about their income. That's not happened. Matter of fact, you can't get by with that. They'll catch that. They're scrutinized heavily over these type of things. There is a lot of regulation on lenders now that does not allow them to do what was being done that led to 2008. Like they can't do what they did. So this is really extreme. Wright believes the coming correction would take several years to fully play out, but she thinks a downturn could begin as early as 2026. See, I would use I would use a term more like reset of pricing value. A decrease in value is going to take place, but it's not drastic. It's a typical kind of like a reset. Like we had this massive inflation and it was going so high and so fast that the Fed stepped in and began to raise the interest rate to slow that inflation down. Their goal was to hit a mark of about 2% inflation month over month. Once they hit that mark, they started inching that interest rate back down a little bit. Notice it didn't come down that much though. It started closer to the 7. Now we're down to about 6.3. So it didn't go drastically low. It just went lower, and that curved that inflation a little bit. So to put it more back in balance. So that's really what's going on here. I believe we could get started in earnest next year on the price decline and see a rather large drop historically speaking, but still think it could take several years to bottom. She's not the only one sounding alarms. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent recently said the housing market is already in a recession due to Federal Reserve policy, and Rich Dad Poor Dad author Robert Kiyosaki has warned that the biggest crash in history is beginning, adding that residential real estate crashes in this scenario as well. If you share these concerns, now may be a good time to start preparing. A safe haven for bad times. Okay. They give some advice here. I'm just going to skip their advice. I will share this article in the description once the live stream is done. You guys can kind of read through this. And here's the interesting thing, is they end up talking more and more kind of about how you build a safety net to, be ready for this turn and what that looks like. And they start giving advice on what that is with a bunch of links. All right. And when you start clicking links and you start looking at the people that made these comments in here, and I'm going to emphasize one in particular that made a comment, is right here, Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. All right. So Rich Dad, Poor Dad, he great book, good advice in there. Some of it, okay. Some of them I maybe would disagree with, just like any book I read. I don't agree with everything that author says. I got to take my own experiences, my own head knowledge, and apply it in my own wisdom and logic into anything I read. I get it. But it's interesting that they reach out to Robert Kiyosaki, an author of a book that talks about Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and talks heavily about certain types of economic factors. He wants you to buy books. He wants you to look to him for advice. So when you start looking at advice given, it starts pointing you in a direction that leads to sales of certain merchandise. So then when you start looking at the hyperbole of this article and you get down to the advice and you start seeing all these links and these backlinks going everywhere, you begin to kind of see the angle here. It's like, if I can boost advertisers from my site to use this product and work in an advertorial type article that gives semi data that then drives people to buy books and start making wise decisions in some ways, right? Storing up and saving money, great advice. But they're pointing to certain sources that drive you to probably more than likely advertorial people that advertise on their site. So it's their way of funneling more money and making more relevancy and helping their advertisers. So you gotta be very vigilant. So now, this is going back to what I was told long ago. Matter of fact, it's by a guy that has a YouTube channel called Smarter Every Day. If you haven't checked out that channel, go to YouTube, type that in, Smarter Every Day. And he talked with a bunch of news sources, and he talked to an analyst that analyzed the behavior of of man and how they come to conclusions about truth and that kind of stuff. And the advice that they gave in that YouTube video was read across the tabs, not vertically. And I said this in the previous live stream, and I'm probably going to keep saying this. You need to read multiple articles about the same thing, not just the vertical and the same source. And when I say vertical, it basically is meaning I open up Yahoo Finance and I read through their article. And then I click on a link and I go to another Yahoo Finance article to read another article about the same topic. And I'm staying on the same site with the same source. What you should do is open up multiple tabs on your browser, go through all those different news sources that are talking about the same thing and compare the data, and then do your own research and check the sources of all those articles that you do. Now, most people don't have the time to do all that. That's fine. You can probably even use ChatGPT. Take those articles, paste it in there and say, hey, give me the consensus here using data found online by, reliable sources of economics, and match it up to what these articles are saying and tell me the truth. Now, you still got to read through that, but in some ways it can quickly analyze what we're doing here. But it's a good practice because we can learn a lot by just doing this. All right, so some actionable kind of items that I want to take from this article is this. Reassure your clients that the fundamentals of the market that we're currently in, reassure them that they are strong. Like in all citing evidence, like the delinquency of rates, of making payments is not happening. We're not seeing huge amount of foreclosures or people worried not being able to make their payment. Most people are just holding on to their homes because they can't sell it for what they got in it. So they're okay with sitting on it. Not that they're in any kind of financial restraint and chances of losing their house. Most of them have locked in rates. And so they've been paying that for a few years now. They don't have adjustable rate mortgages where they're in limbo here waiting for the next interest rate hike on their loan. So we're not seeing that. So we need to build client confidence. We need to educate them on what the data is actually saying. And then really come up with come up with statements and stuff that counter any kind of headlines that say crash is looming, right? Because well, yeah, but we don't have, if you read multiple articles, and I'm going to go through a couple more here real quick, is we're not seeing that. That's not what most of the economists, not opinion pieces, most economists that you are using data are not saying what that article said. That's not what they're saying. All right. And then what I would say this is get good at researching your own data. Look through, FHA delinquency data. Go online and check out websites that report foreclosure rates. Like, what is this looking like? What kind of shortfalling are we having here? And then get very equipped with looking at inventory in your market. Do you see an increase in homes coming on the market or a decrease? And how drastic is that? Some MLSs actually still have data that goes back that far. Go into your MLS there and look at the data and see what the market was like in 2008 and compare that to what is going on now. You have access to data. Go use it. Zillow even keeps records of some of this stuff. So be the informant with the truth, right? So be aware of these type of things. And then also emphasize any kind of difference between local price corrections and then what national collapsing might be going on. Because ultimately, real estate is very hyper local. What's happening in New York and Chicago and LA and these big cities is not necessarily going to correlate to your market. So you can read these national headlines and most people are reading those things. But what I would say is make sure you understand what's going on in your market, right? Is a collapse looming in your market, or is there an adjustment taking place, right? That you might see that might just be an adjustment. So let's jump into the next article here, because now we're going to go in. We had that information from Yahoo Finance, and now we're going to jump into even, I'm not the biggest fan of everything that Zillow does. You can argue back and forth about what Zillow is doing with agents and that kind of stuff, but I'm not going to weigh into that. But they released their prediction. Now, mind you, Zillow has probably the most access to real estate agents' data. They have linked everything to their site through MLS portals and IDX feeds and everything. So they have a lot of data. So what does Zillow have to say about predicting the housing market? So let's look at this. Zillow's 2026 housing market predictions. Zillow economists, notice that they're saying these are economists, right? Not analysts, but economists. So they're looking at data if they're true economists. Predict the housing market will warm up in 2026 with more sales and modest price growth. Direct contradiction to what we just kind of read, right? Interesting. Now, let's talk about what brings them to that kind of conclusion. All right. The key takeaways in this article is home values are forecast to rise 1.2% in 2026, with a number of major markets seeing annual price declines projected to fall from 24 markets as of October 12th next year. Real estate is local, guys. It's local. So you're going to see some places that dip. You're going to see some places increase. More, again, what I would argue is more of a reset, not a crash. Zillow projects 4.26 million existing home sales next year, a 4.3% increase over 2025, as improving affordability brings more demand back to the market. This is what we're seeing across the board, guys. Like, if I go back the past couple years, I see an increase in buyer traffic and a decrease in the asking price of sellers because they're adjusting to the market. The market's resetting. It's resetting. Zillow rent affordability is expected to improve in 2026, with multifamily rents forecast to rise just 0.3%. The housing market should settle into a healthier state in 2026, with buyers seeing a bit more breathing room and sellers benefiting from price stability and more consistent demand. Very interesting. Home values will rise modestly. Fewer owners will be underwater as prices firm up. You notice this? So if we go back to the previous article, now again, we have to contrast, is this article true, right? This is the opposite extreme. So now we've got one extreme over here that says, oh, we're 2008, it's going to happen again and we're not going to crash, ending with, mind you, click these links and get some financial advice from our friends here at yahoo.com. And then we have this article that is Zillow talking about the opposite on how the market is warming up and sellers are feeling more confident and more buyers are coming into the market because income is adjusting to this and sellers are feeling comfortable about this, and we have this adjustment, right? This is just the fun thing about reading news. With home values expected to rise in most major markets, fewer homeowners will see their Zestimate fall below what they paid for their home. Good old Zestimates. This stands in contrast to 2025, when home values have fallen in 24 of the 50 largest markets as of October. A number of Zillow forecasts will be cut in half to 12 major markets next year. Stabilizing prices means more homeowners will continue building equity rather than losing it. Okay? Mortgage rates will hold above 6%. Even if the experts foreseeing mortgage rates a year out is about as difficult as predicting next year's weather forecast. Gamble. That's why if someone's asking me, should I buy now? My straight answer is absolutely. Buy now. Interest rate, don't play the interest rate game at all. If you need to buy, go buy. You can always refinance that home if the interest rate does go down. The reality is, historically, we are below the average, the norm. And then at the same time, you're not in your home for 30 years. You're only in there for 5. And if you're renting right now, you don't own, guess what? You're paying for someone else's house. So buy, right? You build equity. You buy the house. Because of that, we are willing to put ourselves on the record. Mortgage rates are unlikely to fall below 6% in 2026. Borrowers have already seen some relief this year, pushing affordability to a 3-year best. They're not wrong here because, again, you don't want to start lowering this interest rate really, really low too fast, because then inflation takes off and then the homes become valued more and more and more and more outside of the affordability of the everyday American buyer. So they're going to hold. They're going to hold. They're going to let the market adjust to this more new norm, get used to this interest rate with a little bit of a 0.1, 0.2 fluctuation in the interest rate, just to kind of flip-flop that back and forth, create a little bit of emotion in the market and a little bit of a conversation. That's why they do it. And we're going to start seeing that. New construction will see its weakest year since before the pandemic. Apartment renters will see relief. The lifestyle renter will emerge as a force. For a growing share of Americans, renting is a deliberate choice that supports mobility, reduces home maintenance burdens, and better fits the way they want to live. Nearly 3 in 5 renters say they plan to keep renting next year, according to the Zillow Consumer Housing Trends Report. Even if mortgage rates dropped, only 37% say they would buy, down from 45%. I honestly, I mean, there are situations where you have to rent. I get it. Affordability is probably way out of whack if you're in a big city. But I'm encouraging you, if you are falling into this lifestyle renter idea, I encourage you to not think that way. There is zero wealth building going to take place there. You're renting your life. You're not building any wealth. You're not building any equity. You have no leverage to do anything beyond what you're just paying out. The only option you have is increase your income. You're not building wealth anywhere. You're going to be stuck in the rat race if you don't try to get out of that. So I would highly encourage you to go on to the journey of home ownership. Sure, there's maintenance and stuff like that you got to do to a house, but guys, I'm telling you, you're paying a lot of money in rent. You still have utilities. It's not as bad as you think, and you can always buy a newer home. Always buy a newer home. All right. Inflation-savvy home features are becoming mainstream. Rising household expenses will continue to reshape what buyers look for in a home. So here's probably some advice for you guys, agents out there, or builders. Energy-efficient features such as zero energy-ready homes, whole home batteries, and EV charging stations are appearing more frequently in listings. Zillow predicts families will gravitate toward homes that are energy efficient and grocery optimized. Think walk-in pantries, garage-based cold zones for bulk storage, refrigerated drawers, and smart organization systems that help families shop smarter and keep food fresh. There's definitely a huge integration in between technology and living your life, in your home, major integrations. In my areas, you're not seeing too much of this, but in some, you probably are. It'll trickle down into my more rural areas that I work in, 2 or 3 years from now. But you're probably seeing some of these type of things, and being aware of what this is. If you're a builder out there, I would highly encourage you, don't just, what I always say is, rest on your laurels. In other words, the way I always do things have worked, therefore I won't change. I would encourage you, look, pay attention to what the news is saying, what people are talking about, and what they're looking for, and work in ways. Doesn't mean you have to drastically quickly change, but do, kind of slowly start adapting, because I think that's important to stay relevant, and you won't be lost behind the curve when the change does take place and becomes the new norm. So AI will evolve from helpful assistant to transaction coordinator. All right. A couple takeaways here for you guys. Just as I was reading through that, I'm just going to simply say, look, you need to, when you're talking to your buyers and your sellers, what I would absolutely encourage you to do is you need to make sure that you're setting the realistic expectations for what price growth looks like. And what you need to communicate to them is historically, all right, when they're buying, you can don't worry about, the past 5 years as far as how crazy the inflation was. Don't talk about just these hyper rare experiences where we had this massive inflation with a really low interest rate. Don't talk about those type of things. What you want to talk about is more the realistic expectation, and realize that historically, appreciation has only been around 1.2% nationally. Sales, roughly 4.3 increase year over year, right? So that's kind of more the norm. So when you're having these kind of conversations, you can always say, look, there's some exceptions to what I'm about to tell you, but in reality, I want you to be more prepared for what it's going to probably look like. And it's going to be more of a 1.2 to 4.3% increase year over year on the value of your home. So as you own your home, you're paying down equity, realizing that on average, it's going to be 1.2 to 4.3% increase. So that's about what they're going to look like historically. And then, I would start focusing more of my marketing efforts on talking to, that term, what do call it? Lifestyle renters. When you start talking about lifestyle renters, in other words, I'm saying that this is my life, this is the way I'm going to live, this is the way I like to live, I'm going to keep paying rent. I would encourage you that those that are thinking that way, if you can figure out who those people are, I would probably start reaching out to them, promoting the benefits of home ownership, figuring out how to get a mailing list out to those lifestyle renters, and begin making your argument for the benefits of home ownership in regards to just renting, and addressing some of their larger concerns about home ownership being, maintenance and upkeep. Maybe they don't feel like they're, handy enough with tools that they can't keep up with the everyday maintenance, or maybe their lives are just too busy. I get it. Sometimes people will be renters and that kind of stuff. But if somebody's really ultimately wanting to build some kind of wealth and some kind of nest egg, they're not going to do it by being a renter outside of trying to increase their income. And income typically doesn't rise very fast. So you could easily get caught in a cycle. So I would develop some marketing to kind of address those people that would maybe, say that I want to be a lifestyle renter. To be honest, I've not actually ever heard that term, so I find that interesting. Highlight like any kind of features. Like I would go back and look at your listings in your market and see if there is any of this this energy efficiency. Is EV chargers becoming very common? Walk-in pantries. Is there the cold storage drawers? Is this something that your buyers are looking for? Do you represent a builder? If I would encourage you to have these kind of conversations with those you represent, especially if you're talking to builders. I would go talk to them and say, hey, have you guys thought about doing some, EV charger mounts in the homes? Have you thought about walk-in pantries, because people are eating in more than they used to? What about cold storage? Like people are buying, meats and things in bulk and they need extra storage. Is there ideas that you have to be able to incorporate that into your new built homes? Or, just research your market, get very equipped with maybe what the trend could be. Take this information and kind of say, you know what, it's maybe not happening yet, but I want to kind of begin to be the one that's telling everybody, hey, this is where things are happening. This is where things are moving to. All right. Another article, this is by Inman. I'm just going to skim through these things. This is another article. It is titled, let me share my screen. It is 6 housing market predictions for 2026, according to an economist. Notice that they keep using that word, right? So it adds some credibility to what this article is going to talk about. All right. From mortgage rates to home ownership rates and more, Windermere's principal economist, Jeff Tucker, provides insights tailor-made for 2026. All right. Now, there's a video here that you guys can go back and watch, but let's just jump straight down into the article. 6 housing market predictions from 2026 from an economist. Here are my calls about the most important trends for the housing market in 2026. Number 1, existing home sales will pick up. Barely. Home sales have hovered near generational lows for 3 years now. As we head into 2026, there's little reason to expect a sharp rebound, but the pieces are in place for a modest uptick. Inventory levels are higher than they've been since 2019, and mortgage rates are lower than they've been since 2022. That combination should be enough to nudge existing home sales upward next year, just not by much. But see, that's strategy, right? That is strategy. That's bringing balance to the market. It plays to the emotions of humans, right? If I can balance the market and have a long period where the market feels balanced, people feel more comfortable. Therefore, people are buying and selling. So the money begins to move more. So you end up having a much, much more stable market, especially in real estate. So that interest rate factor, even if it's just 0.5%, drives people. It drives people to do, refinance and buy and sell and those type of things. So, again, look at this article compared to the one we read at the very beginning, right? Home prices will be roughly flat because sellers and agents have figured out exactly what it is, to price a home. So they understand what the market is. They don't want to sit on the market for a long time. So there you go. Inventory will climb to pre-pandemic levels. Inventory, or the number of active for sale listings, is likely to finally return to pre-pandemic levels nationally in 2026, perhaps as early as the spring selling season. It rose substantially in 2025, and the number of canceled listings suggests there's a shadow supply of homes whose owners want to sell but are waiting for what they consider to be better timing. All right, so the thing is like, I don't know if he has sources for his statements, but these are his predictions. And I will say, as I look at our own MLS data and I begin to look through those type of things, I can't help but agree that this is what we're seeing, right? Let's see what else. Number 4, the home ownership rate will decline. At today's prices and interest rates, homeownership remains out of reach for many middle-class Americans who, under different conditions, would already have bought their first home. Meanwhile, rent growth has slowed sharply, allowing many of these would-be buyers to bide their time and continue renting comfortably. So not a huge increase in rental rates, so that's driving people to stay renters. And again, that's kind of why over the next year or maybe two, you'll see what I'm going to just keep saying, more of a reset, the cooling of the inflation, income adjustments, job growth, those type of things over the next couple of years. That's what we're going to see. Number 5, we will avoid a recession in 2026. Again, it's just a contrast, right? The U.S. economy withstood a number of negative shocks in 2025, leaving it wobbly but still standing. Payroll gains have slowed to a crawl, but that appears to reflect a shrinking labor supply as much as falling demand. And initial unemployment claims never saw a big rise. Number 6, he says mortgage rates will decline slightly. Interest rates will likely stay below 6.25% for most of 2026 and could even be dipped slightly below 6%. If it gets below 6, I will say that even if it's, let's say we hovered around 6.1, 6.2, and we're talking about a marginal dip. Let's just say it dropped right below 6. I want you to think of exactly what would happen there. Think about the emotions that people would have, right? And think about all the headlines that would be ran. What would they read? Interest rates, lowest they've been in many years, below 6%. And they had probably the 5% in there. And that would create mass amount of people being excited to come back into the market. So there's a reason the feds are very careful not to dip below the 6. And that's why we had to take caution to say, will that happen in 2026 or not? Do you think that they will? What's your thoughts? Do you guys think that the interest rate in 2026 will go below 6? Or will the economists or the Fed keep it closer to the 6 mark and bring more of like a reset to the market? What do you think? All right, some of my just kind of my thoughts on this article is this. I would absolutely get really, really, really good at buyer consultation. And in that conversation with them, really lean in to having that conversation about income growth is the main driver for affordability in 2026. You need to remind those clients that slow rising paychecks is what's going to help close the cost gap, even with the stable rates. So talk to them about as income goes up, and we still have this little bit of a gap there where the affordability of the home is still pretty high compared to what the income is in the median price. What will end up happening is they need to focus on doing their job well, staying with the same job, talking to their employer about pay raises, or maybe reposition yourself in another department or find another job that increases that income just a little bit. And then over 2026, you'll see that the sellers are wanting to sell their properties, so they'll bring that price closer down to where that margin is. But having that affordability counseling consultation with your buyer is going to be very crucial to help them understand and really play the long game here. What you really need to be thinking about is not just that particular buyer. Remember, real estate is a referral-based business. If you can represent this client, this one buyer well, and even if they're not ready to buy yet, you work with them through drip campaigns and conversations and those type of things, you will win somebody that will want to refer other people to you. So get very, very good at that buyer consultation. Don't negate it. It's very, very important. Another thing I would also say is, because we are reading national headlines, right? We're reading a ton of things from the national perspective. You definitely need to get very good at developing a highly targeted regional conversation track that talks about your local market. Geographical marketing materials that focus just on your area. Get very, very, very good at doing this. And what I would say is you need to focus on leveraging what the MLS is telling you in your market to develop your talking script within your consultations and your marketing pieces. Use your local data, not national information. Now, when it comes to counseling clients and all those type of things, you definitely want to then move into conversations about like what I would just kind of say, like life happens, right? So like sometimes, seller, if you're talking to a seller, I'm shifting from a buyer consultation now to more a seller consultation, is sometimes people are on the fence about listing their home. I think part of the conversation we need to have in counseling our sellers is asking them more point blank questions. Talking about like, okay, I understand you're not really ready to sell your house just yet. But what kind of life happen events are you anticipating happen over the next year or two? Is there any family weddings taking place? Is there job changes on their horizon? Or help them think through what it looks like over the next year to two and what that looks like if they're not really ready to sell just yet. Having that seller consultation and talking through those scenarios, because a lot of times sellers won't want to list their property just yet because they're afraid that they're not going to get what they asked for it. But in reality, the way we live and what we live in, the type of homes we have, is dictated by what I call life happens, right? Certain things happen. You might have a family member that is needing to move back in with you. Maybe that's on the horizon. Is that part of the equation? Is somebody getting married you have to pay more money for? And all these type of scenarios, these life happen events, is getting to the motivation of what the seller is thinking about selling their home, right? Okay. Again, it's funny. Almost every single article that I got today was definitely focused on the economy. And this is very typical for the December market. In December, you have tons of economists putting out their predictions, right? Just constantly putting it out. And so that's going to probably be the theme of all of December. But I'm not going to labor too much on this. Just as another referencing point, this is real estate news. Again, notice the headline: economists expect a reset for housing in 2026, not a rebound. With the U.S. economy at a crossroads, real estate economists have differing home sales forecasts for 2026, but most expect mortgage rates to continue to drop. Key points of this: economists have a wide range of predictions for real estate in 2026, due in part to uncertainty about how much more the labor market will weaken. While some economists have differing expectations for home sales, the general expectation is that prices will stay relatively flat. Interesting, right? Inflation and job market fluctuations will impact mortgage rates, which are expected to tick lower. Rates remain a key factor in the market's ability to bounce back. Notice how I'm reading across tabs, right? I'm reading across tabs. I'm reading multiple news sources. And I didn't go out here and try to find specific news articles that actually counteracted the Yahoo article. I literally just opened up my real estate news sources that I read all the time, and I read a ton of them. They all have this headline of talking about what the economist expects to happen. And what I've noticed is almost all of them have kind of the same kind of theme. There's some caution in what they're saying, but then they go back to their data and they start talking about their predictions about what it looks like. And we see a common thread by reading across the lines here. And that's the important thing to be doing, is read across multiple news sources. Don't just take one and run with it, and read it in its entirety. A year ago, economists weren't too far off when it came to their predictions for 2025. This is a good note. 2025, 30-year mortgage rates did stay above 6% as most expected, and home sales price growth did slow. Predictions about home sale growth varied, as many economists were overly optimistic. This is a link. I'm just going to click it. I'm kind of curious. I don't know. Oh, it won't let me do it. Oh, shoot. I'm not logged in. That's all right. I'm not going to labor on this one anymore. Look, the reality is I will post this link in there. I'm not going to take the time to log in and reset that and get back to that article. But what I will say is you can read that. It's going to go along the same kind of lines as the other two articles. So the other two articles I just kind of went over. Again, kind of more like a reset, nothing crazy. But really, if I was to take every single one of these kind of articles and summarize them and talk about what it looks like, I would brand this. I would brand, if you're wanting a headline, you could probably use something like the year of the reset, right? And then I would frame it in a way that's going to be a slow, gradual improvement, positively, and manage the expectations away from a sharp, V-shaped rebound. Like I would say it's the year of the reset, we're going into 2026 and the real estate market is poised to reset, economists say. Through multiple sources, you can share the sources or whatever you want to say this type of stuff. And just say, look, we're looking at more of a slow change going on, nothing drastic. We don't have this crazy V-shaped change of like a rebound. We were here and now we're going to go here. And it's more of a bounce into the market. So brand your messaging and what you're talking about more along the lines of what the economists typically are saying, is that we're going to see some more adjusting going on. Where does that lead us 5 years from now? I don't know. I can't predict those type of things. But what I can say is in 2026, you're going to see kind of what we saw in 2025, but in a more positive way. Now, what I would also say this is, when the interest rate is typically a very common conversation piece that people always talk about. Like if most people ask you, like, how's the market, right? And what they're really looking for is the typical talk track, because it's all they really know. And if you notice, when they ask that question, they'll follow it up with kind of like, yeah, I saw the interest rate is blah, 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 right? So what they're looking for is kind of a deeper understanding about what that actually means. So what I would say is prepare your clients for what the mortgage rates are going to be probably doing in 2026, right? That they're probably going to hover between the this is a prediction, but I would say they're going to hover right around the 6.15 to maybe 6.3% range. Could it dip below 6? Possibly. I don't see that actually happening, kind of for my same argument. I don't think they want to increase a huge influx of buyer or seller traffic and inflation. So they're being very cautious with going below 6 just because of what the headlines would then say. So they're going to be very hesitant on that. So I would set the expectation, if you say it's going to hover right around those percentages, you help them avoid any kind of disappointment from expecting any kind of great return to any kind of pre-pandemic rates, right? Guys, we're not going to probably see that in our lifetime. Then what I would then switch to research doing, if you want to really understand what could happen locally in your market, is I would pay very close attention to what does the job market and availability look like in your area. Because what we have noted is you have still this affordability problem. The homes are still kind of outpacing what the average income is. So the median price isn't fitting in with the median income. So what you want to monitor to really give you kind of an analysis and a forecasting about what the market's going to do is you're going to watch those two numbers. You really want to watch and see, hey, is this affordability of these homes, what is that number? And then go and look and do some research in your local area about what the market is saying as far as jobs is concerned. What is the average income per person matched up to the average selling price of a home? What does that look like? Is there new business and new factories or new things happening in your market? And what do they pay on average for those jobs? You can take that average job market, that average income of your local area, and do a calculation and figure out what the average selling price is going to be. And most times, income takes about a year or two to adjust to what the affordability is. So if you know the average income right now, 12 months back, is XYZ, and you use that number to come to the conclusion about what that average priced home that person making that income can buy, chances are you know where to market your services to sellers at, where the sweet spot is. You've got a number that you can go out and market to that priced home, knowing and having the conversation with the seller with the data you just did based on the job market report to match that up with the affordability of the home of the person you're talking to. In essence, taking data to close more deals, to then bring more confidence to sellers, which makes them very happy because you're bringing true data and not just speculating, which is what most agents will not do. They will not show up to a listing appointment. Most of the time they go in there and they say, I do this, I do all these great things. Here's how I'll market your property. They'll have a CMA and they'll say, look, this is what the average home is selling for, blah, 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 right? I would take it one step farther. Take the data, job market income, figure out the average selling price, find those sellers, you'll sell more property, and you'll have the conversation you need to be having with your people, right? And before I wrap up today, I do want to go over one more article, actually. I'm switching gears, though. I'm switching to talking a little bit of technology here. So just before we wrap up this week and come to an end, this is an interesting, just quick read. And it's talking about AI and search tools and what I kind of want to just kind of get you guys thinking about. I'm going to be doing more digging into AI in general, probably in the coming weeks, just because it's becoming just, I mean, this is just part of the conversation for everything that's going around. AI. So this article it says ReChat, FUB, follow-up boss is what that is. It's a CRM, integration, new pro and consumer AI search tools. Real Scout unveils AI search for pros as UtahRealestate.com introduces natural language home search for shoppers. Plus, Follow Up Boss partners with ReChat. So the thing is, I'm not promoting anything over another thing. I mean, everybody's kind of got their own CRM. But what I am going to kind of emphasize here is things that are happening and integrations that are happening in our industry. Because I do think when we switch gears from talking about the market, I'm going to switch now into like, what is our industry going to look like? Like, what is AI going to do to our jobs, and how does it streamline this? Because there's a lot of integrations going on with AI and our everyday tools. So this article kind of features on a couple companies and what they're doing, but we want to take note of this because this article is going to lay out kind of how search is working and how that helps agents and their CRMs and how to help them function. So this is more of a conversation, right? So I want conversation in the chat here or even in the discussion boards and that kind of stuff too that I'm a part of. I want to see these things happen. So what does it say? ReChat's vision becomes reality through FUB integration, which is Follow Up Boss. Agent CRM and marketing tools can now exist in one place thanks to ReChat's new partnership with Follow Up Boss. The integration, which can be set up in a couple of minutes according to ReChat, enables a two-way data sync where agents will find client contacts, messaging records, and to-do lists updated simultaneously across ReChat and Follow Up Boss. Bringing these tools under one umbrella will boost agent productivity and organization by helping them manage clients and leads on the same platform where they create marketing and communication content, ReChat said in a news release. The company's mission has always been to deliver a true super app experience for real estate professionals, and this partnership makes that vision a reality for every Follow Up Boss user. Finding ways to elevate agent productivity is also key for Follow Up Boss. According to the company's CMO, Steve Pacciolini, integrating with ReChat makes that even easier by combining the power of our CRM with ReChat's marketing and AI tools in one consistent and highly productive workflow. This is the second major integration for ReChat in recent months. The company announced its integration with collaborative design platform Figma, a first in real estate marketing. So what's happening here, and this is what we're going to begin to see, a couple things, is the programming side of the world is getting better at doing what's called API integrations. They figured out a way to kind of help coding and bring one program in with another one, and then they work really well together. So you have a lot of partnerships, a lot of integrations. And so AI and these tools are getting better at integrating with other APIs. So you have this layering of tools in the back end, whereas the consumer, us agents, won't know how that works, but it brings in these tools into one platform. So when we start talking about our CRM and what it is, right, it's storing all these contacts, all this information and all this data. So about our clients. So there's a lot of data there. These integrations are coming in. They're using the data that's in the CRM, and they're creating actionable triggers from that data to create more things that you can use as an agent. So marketing pieces, MLS integrations, website integrations, marketing pieces that you can send out, print materials. These become automated. At the same time, you'll see like drip campaigns. Instead of being like this, just 12 emails a year newsletters that is just a canned email responses, you're going to see this more integration. This is more of the conversation. What are you seeing, right? What do you see AI doing in your market? Because when I'm reading this kind of stuff, what I ultimately see happening is a consolidation of all these tools integrated into like a CRM. Think of a CRM like an operating system that other people integrate with, because that's where the data is stored. And then those data centers then become a hub that begins to create through AI things that you use on an everyday basis, being like drip campaigns, where instead of it being just a canned response, it's adaptive based on what your user is doing across the internet. So then when they get an email from you or a text from you or whatever, AI is went in there and analyze what your clients are doing and then responding to them accordingly. So we are just at the beginning of this kind of stuff, right? So this is where I believe it's heading. It's heading into a world where you put a contact into a CRM, and the CRM is integrated with all these other tools through AI, and it begins to build and tailor everything customized specifically for your client. So then when you're making calls and you're making connections on the relationship side and making connections with them, then that is going to then elevate your professionalism in front of them, and your relationship with them can be magnified, freeing you up from time to have to do all these type of things and giving you more time to be more intentional being in front of actual people. So that's the thing, is right now, if you really think about social media, drip campaigns and emails and texts, and then all this research we're talking about right now, how difficult is this, right? So if you have a CRM that's integrated with all these different tools, think about that, right? Think about how nice that would be when you put a contact in and it goes to work, freeing you up to actually do that one-on-one meetings with people and building more relationships or being more involved in your community, right? And not being, caught in this rat race where you have to sit down for 3 hours a day and do lead generation just to bring leads in. You can spend intentional time with actual real live people serving your community. So that's why I would say AI is very interesting. It's not to eliminate the human element, but if you use it correctly, it will free you time to actually increase your human element, right? Then we jump down to the next one. New Real Scout tool aims to let AI do the heavy lifting. Real Scout announced today the launch of AI Search for Pros, a new AI-driven property search tool the company said was designed with serious clients in mind. The tool allows agents to use natural language while conducting client-specific home searches, a tactic, according to Real Scout, that will make it easier for agents to weed out listings that don't match their clients' needs. The prompts can include basic requirements such as location, square footage, and price, and more specific preferences like pools and HOA cost limits. Real Scout built the product for professionals so they can run complex searches that simply aren't possible with other platforms. AI Search for Pros is meant to go beyond other AI tools used in real estate, which Real Scout CMO Seth Price said tend to be either consumer-facing or a thin wrapper on an AI company's chat interface. We've taken the opposite approach. Start with the structure and nuance of the MLS. Honor the agent's workflow and let AI do the heavy lifting in between. Real Scout customers who attended the company's December 4th product launch webinar will gain early access. So very interesting, right? If I talk like a normal person about trying to find someone a home into their system, it's analyzing my conversation and bringing up relevant search results. So I can be, as linear as I possibly could. I can be very specific. Search for homes between $100,000, $200,000, 3-bed, 2-bath, no HOAs, and located in these counties, right? I could do that naturally, and it begins to do the search. Or I could talk naturally. I can say, hey, so I've got this client. They are pre-approved for $250,000. But they really want to stay under $200,000. And so therefore I want to search between $100,000 and $200,000. But help me find the deep, lost properties that get overlooked, because maybe there's some nuances inside of this parameters of price that I might miss. And at the same time, they said to me that they're looking for a 3-bed, 2-bath home, but they said they might be able to make a 2-bedroom house work if there is a walkout basement. They also said they didn't want to be above 3,000 square feet, and they couldn't be below 2,000 square feet, but don't exclude properties that are slightly within the margin below 2,000 and 3,000. You see what I'm doing here? Like I'm not funneling in my conversation and my search results into a very specific parameter where I miss a property that might be listed at 199,000, or I'm not missing a home that might be have 199 square feet, right? I'm not limiting my search. I'm giving it some parameters. And guess what? It begins to tailor that parameter. So you can kind of see how this works. The other cool thing where this will head, and this is where I think it will head ultimately, is when you sit down and you're doing a buyer consultation with your client. You sit down, you open up your CRM app on your phone. You're sitting down. I'm talking hypothetically. There might be some CRMs out there that can do this, but this is where I see this going, forward thinking here. You sit down with your client, you open up your CRM app, and you say simply to them, it's like, hey, I will be sitting down talking to you about a bunch of questions. I want you to tell me about what you're looking for. Tell me what it is that you search for. And as I do so, I'm going to have my CRM open, and it's going to be kind of doing some preliminary searches for us. It's going to be capturing our conversation of the things you're looking for, and it will help me tailor my results to you even better. So just know that I've got this recording, and have your conversation. You talk about their needs and their wants and their where they want to live and life changes and what they're thinking and their type loan that they want to get and all this detail, right? So what ends up happening is that AI records that whole entire conversation tied in with your CRM, and it begins to then automatically update your CRM with the details about what that client is looking for. And then once it's in there, what happens next, right? When you start talking about all these integrations, the data doesn't just sit there. No, the CRM goes to work. The CRM begins to do active searching for those properties, automatically sets up searches that you can verify, automatically creates marketing materials and a drip campaign that goes to them, talking about the home ownership process, tailored to the specifics that they laid out in that conversation. See what just happened here? So I have a natural one-on-one conversation with my client. I'm recording the conversation to be used inside of an AI to automatically generate all the busy work that I normally would have to go back to the office or my home office and do, and sit down in front of a computer and type all this kind of stuff in search parameters, set up, drip campaigns and set up, search results and all these type of things for them. It's automatically going to work. So I can go in and set meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting all day long and never be backed up on the busy work that's not making me any money. I can stay in front of people. So my argument is that that's where we're heading here. When you start looking at these integrations, what's happening technology-wise, what's happening inside of CRMs, this is where the future is going to lead. It is not eliminating the real estate agent, not the good ones. What it's going to do is the good ones are going to utilize these AI technologies and these CRMs, and then they're going to go out and spend more time face-to-face and serving their community, being in front of people, right? Not doing busy work. Utah MLS debuts AI voice search. Has also unveiled a new AI-powered home search function, but its tool is designed for consumers and will make looking for a home easier than ever before. Anyone who visits URE's website or MLS can now vocalize a home search prompt and see related properties pop up. The tool can understand natural language and won't get confused if a user needs to revise their prompt halfway through its delivery. This latest embrace of new tech makes URE one of the first MLSs to deliver advanced AI-driven voice search capabilities. According to CEO Brad Jekyll, I probably said that wrong, sorry, who said the tool gives the MLS's members and consumers one of the easiest and most seamless methods to search for properties. During his time as CEO, has leaned heavily into technology. I avoid saying his name again. I don't want to butcher it. Sorry. Investing in development and recently launching a separate data company. We are not restricted by many of the limitations of out-of-the-box software providers, so we can rapidly institute a new feature or function that separates us from the competition. All right. Very good. So what can I use to, summarize this up or whatever? Stay current on what is going on in technology and especially AI in regards to the CRM and productivity tools that you are using, and get good at understanding where we're probably heading as an industry. Anticipate these changes and be looking for those changes coming your way. And then what I encourage you to do is take time to research them and get involved with them and participate in them and start using them to free you up from time to get in front of people better, right? So look and see what that is. I would say, be careful though, because tends to, when you start making major technology shifts like this, we are sometimes too quick to embrace the new technology that might not be the best technology to embrace. So, and what I mean is I would take my time incorporating these new technologies, because we are at the very beginning of this new forefront of technology. And with that being said, you don't want to just immediately embrace all this new AI technology that is where it automatically communicates with your clients and it sounds like a robot. And what I am seeing a lot of times with a lot of this new technology is just that. A lot of this kind of stuff is people can read it really quick and realize that it's AI communicating with them, and it is a massive turnoff to them. So I'd be very careful just quickly integrating chat bots on your website that appear to be fake, because people are looking for that genuine connection still. I do like the idea of putting something in my CRM and it automatically begins to save searches and build marketing materials and that kind of stuff that I can review and then send out as I like and maybe tweak and edit before it's being sent out. So that's where I would lean into that area. So, but anyway, that's just technology. That's what it is. So there you go. Well, guys, I know it was, a lot of information. Hopefully you find this helpful. I do thank you guys for, tuning in. It's just a time for me to this is my normal morning routine. I've actually been enjoying this. It's simple for me to do because it's literally what I do every day already. And why not just go live, talk through things? Those that want to watch and are interested can log on and watch this. And like I said, I'm going to work out an actual schedule here really shortly. Probably through the month of December, I'm not going to do that because my schedule is very sporadic. It's not a normal schedule through December, which I'm sure most of you guys can relate to. Like starting January, I probably will, put in more of a standardized, schedule for live streaming and going through this, and a time start and end time too. So I'll be looking for that. And like always, if you're watching this on YouTube, I appreciate that. Please like and subscribe, ring the bell, all those things. That does help this. I want to build a community here, and I want to be able to impart just some ideas and train you into how to read news articles, and then leverage those news articles to benefit you in your real estate industry, in your real estate career. My goal is that you do gain something from this. In no way do I claim to be the ultimate source of this information, nor do I claim to have all knowledge about these type of things. I can be wrong on a lot of stuff, and I will probably be wrong on a lot of things. But at the same time, I've been doing this for a very long time, and I read a lot and I study a lot. So my goal is to bring clarity to what the news is saying. You'll also see some helpful advice in here, like we just kind of discussed about AI. My goal is to have some news, impart some wisdom, give you guys some tools. Also, though, outside of YouTube, I'm actually streaming to Twitch as well. I think that user base is a little bit different as far as engagement is concerned on the chat and follows and that kind of stuff. So as I get developing this live stream and figuring out exactly how I want that to look in certain segments and certain things I do outside of just sharing news, Twitch would be a place to kind of engage with me a little bit more as far as the chat goes. So I understand it's more of a gaming site, but again, the tools over there tend to be a little more community centric, not so heavily on short form content, what I would call evergreen-ish. These news articles are not really evergreen, but they tend to be more focused. YouTube tends to be more like videos that last a long time and get traction. Twitch is more like live in the moment. So I might sometimes just go live on Twitch and Twitch only, and really just be there answering questions, that kind of stuff. Whereas YouTube, I'll come on and actually have more conversation and dialogue, and then share relevant information for actually videos. So that's kind of the different use cases there. But hopefully you've enjoyed this. I do appreciate you guys tuning in. Thank you as always. I know you guys took some time out of your schedule to be here. I don't take that lightly. Hopefully you're getting some value out of this. If you are, smash that like button. But otherwise, have a great weekend. I'll be back next week. Be with your family. Take some time off, get some rest, and we'll see you guys next week. Appreciate you greatly. Take care.